welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Podcast. Today is the day when we talk about B2B sales. So it's the Q4. That's the important topic for all the software tech SaaS companies. And I have just the right guest for that. Lennart, my man, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to this.
Tell me, how do you pronounce your last name?
So because I'm German, it's Prange. However, you can do it in any way. You can say Prange, 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 whatever works for you.
That's why I asked, because when I was a kid, we had this cable TV, and one of the channels that I was watching, actually two of them, was ProSieben, and that was the DSF, because they had the NBA during the nights. Right. And so I learned a couple of things, how to pronounce it. But, it's always nice to ask, because I found out people, living in the US that are from Germany that say, no, like I'm the third generation. We don't pronounce it like that anymore, or, something like that.
No, it's all good. I mean, I worked internationally a bit, and that was always French, always worked nicely. But the correct German pronunciation is Prange. Yeah, quite boring.
Yeah, actually, I like it. That's kind of nice, because like we here in Serbia, we basically read as we write. So it's all the same. And then you have English, German, especially French. I learned French in high school, and damn, it's as complex as Serbian is when it comes to the grammar. But anyway, tell me and all the listeners a few things why I'm talking with you about B2B sales. What do you actually do?
For sure. So I'm Lennart. Very nice to meet everybody. And basically, I'm a founder of a company called Valuecase. We are a German-based SaaS company, and we are a sales tech. So we do a sales enablement solution. It's called Digital Sales Room. It's the broader sense. It's kind of a deal execution, deal management solution. Happy to dive into that. And we mainly sell to SaaS companies as well. So we are quite close to that market, right? So we sell to sales teams between, I would say, typically 20 to 50, 60, 70 people. It's kind of our sweet spot. And we talk to a lot of sales leaders day in, day out. And I'm 31. I founded this company with my co-founder about 2 years ago. Now we are spread around Germany, but it's a COVID child, right? So back then everybody was remotely, and everything was set up remotely. And that's also how the company is currently structured. But we have kind of our hubs in Berlin and Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah, nice. I always like talking to the people who are, around 30 years of age, still young, going into the B2B, into the SaaS, into solving complex problems. And that's always something that, I'm motivated to hear more about and to talk about. So tell me, especially from that perspective, and you're already third year in a business, right? What are some of the things that you saw in the whole B2B space change? Because, from my side, from marketing side, the way B2B buyers buy has changed a lot with basically the maturity of internet, right? From that times we spent, I mean, you and I met on LinkedIn. We can DM anybody. You have a lot of, Revenue Genius, other small communities. So how did that actually affect the way we sell and the way we buy?
Yeah. So definitely this longer term time frame you could take a look at, right, and say 1990s, you basically had sales as the gatekeepers, and it was really hard to get to information. If you fast forward to nowadays, it's completely different. It's basically upside down, right? The powers with the buyers, and also you have so many solutions on the market. I mean, especially in SaaS, it exploded. And you have so many solutions on the market that you can buy that you just also don't spend a lot of your time with the sales rep anymore, right? So if we're looking at that, I think 5% of the time, typically in a sell, if it's a complex one, is spent with one sales rep. The rest of the time, internal discussions, vendors, talking to peers, etc. So all of this buying journey basically completely changed. Everybody comes into the buying journey a completely different step, which is really difficult for sales teams to manage. Like if you're going to this whole SDR, AE kind of two-step funnel and so on discussion. And that definitely changed a lot in the recent, I would say, 20, 30 years. And that was also one of the major kind of hypotheses when we started Valuecase, or when we looked into starting Valuecase. I think also now on the shorter kind of time frame, there's also a huge shift going on, right? When we started in 2021, the world was, compared to today, completely different in the whole revenue kind of team. Now you have way longer sales cycles, you have way more stakeholders in the deal, everything is way slower, you have lower win rates, you have lower quota attainment. So sales is under a lot of pressure. I guess marketing will be similar. And that changed in the recent 2 years completely. So you can look at the longer time frame. You can look at it like from the shorter time frame. There's quite a lot going on, I think, in this whole B2B sales universe.
Yeah, and I think quite a few new roles in the companies actually have risen, right? We have now revenue teams. We didn't have that before, like, and there was a change where, just salespeople were renamed as, sales team now is the revenue team. Then that's actually changed, had some context to it. And, but also, we have these things going on, every day you go to LinkedIn, you see something else, led growth, community led growth, marketing led growth, product led growth. There's
channel led growth, ecosystem led growth, right? Can spin that story. Yeah.
Content led sales was Steven Schmidt was my guest a few episodes ago as well. So and for an average B2B SaaS company to go ahead and look at all those things, they're like, damn, what should I actually do, right? Because let's start from the beginning. When you have a company that's just starting, building out momentum, maybe testing out the market, I usually say marketing is okay at that moment. It's helping you create the story and everything else, but sales is the channel that you need to actually prove your hypothesis, get to know your customers, talk with them, and see what the situation out there. And like, you don't have a strategic narrative until it is proven in sales. So let's talk about from the when companies start selling, how does that motion develop?
Yeah. So for us, I think we are really stereotypical in that kind of startup journey, right? Because we are also a funded company, so we have VC funding, and we went through the typical stages you would see. And we did a validation at first, and that was really one-to-one, trying to sell what is not there, right? So trying to talk to people, and I think that is where in this one-to-one interactions, that is where you kind of develop an understanding for your customer, for your persona, where you develop an understanding for your market, how to go to market. And I think you need this kind of one-to-one interaction. You might be the person yourself, you might be the target group yourself, but still you will want to go into the wider market and validate with them before you go into mass marketing. And I think also thereafter, typically, because the product will just not be ready for product-led growth, usually if you don't spend a lot of time in R&D, you also will want to sell in the beginning. You need to set up accounts and onboard people, and all will be shit UX, right? And all of these things you need to control. So I think sales is always the point where you start, because otherwise you're too slow, in my opinion. Marketing takes time. I think developing the narrative takes time, and I don't meet founders very often that are experienced in marketing as well, right? I think it's always a bit also what you're good at. And some people might be very good at marketing as a founder and be able to push that organic kind of LinkedIn button, and that can be a great multiplier. But for most, I would say sales in the beginning is the typical way to go. And then you decide where you want to go based on the ACVs you have, so the average contract values you have, based on the user group you target, based on the kind of product you want to build. And then the way is split. But what I would also say to this whole like channel-led, product-led, etc., for me, those are all kind of channels. So I look at self-sign-up as a channel, and this will convert at a specific rate in a specific amount of time to specific ACVs. And then I have sales. And every company, when it grows up, eventually adds every channel, because you want to grow and you should use every channel you can. And there's definitely products that can't do product-led for sure, if you need a lot of integrations and so on. But also Slack has an enterprise sales team. And all of these companies that started product-led typically have an enterprise sales team. And I think it's just then you have different channels where leads come in. They might come through the product, they might come through an interactive demo, they might come through a content download, if that's still a thing. And then you convert them in different rates. And some are economic, some aren't economically closable, so to say. And that's how I look at that, right? So I look at the whole revenue thing, I look at marketing, at sales, at outbound, inbound, and then I would just prioritize based on what company you want to build, what product you have, and what is economic and not.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's how how it actually should be, right? And I talk to my team like every couple of days, and they say, but why don't company actually do all those things, right? Usually, company don't do those things which are obvious when you look from outside, right? So there are steps that you need to do: set up the foundation, then go ahead, prove the hypothesis, try to sell the product that you have before you go and you build the complex product, and those things. But let's talk about I don't want to waste that that many time on simple product that we can sell, even through marketing. But if you talk about complex problems that we sell to the enterprise level companies, then you actually need a sales team for that, because it's high ACV. There are sales cycles are longer, and you talk to multiple people inside the company. You don't sell just to one person, you sell to the account. And knowing that, you need to have a specific system that you're going to use to kind of get in front of all those people and get into the right conversations and convert the right conversations into something more meaningful than that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm always wondering if it makes if it's the right perspective to look at it as simple products, complex products. Because if you take, for example, Slack, I think it's very good to look at something like Slack because it's a simple problem, right? It's a simple product as well. Just want to message like somebody, so it's quite simple, and this works product-led for sure if you have a small team. However, what happens if you go into the enterprise is you're competing with Microsoft, who has a sales team and who aggressively bundles their products. So that's something you need to fight against, which is really difficult to do product-led if you're going bottom up, meaning you start with one person, one team, then you try to like get your way up. So that is something that is really difficult. So competition is different because the size of the prize is way higher. Then what happens as well is suddenly you have all these enterprise requirements that you just can't prove product-led, right? So you have to explain to the integration team how this integrates with the systems. You have to explain to the security teams what happens. You have to explain to procurement why this enterprise package is this size and not that size. And you have suddenly 15 plus people involved, which is typical, right? And that is where you need a sales team for, because it's really, really hard. It's really easy to sell to somebody, hey, you want to have Slack? Okay, here's Slack, go ahead, right? That's easy. But what is really hard is this individual user has some requirements, they want to have it, but does the organization want to have that too? What is kind of the organizational requirements? And getting these through is always the sales team is needed for that. Otherwise, it's inefficient. And the company on the other side expects it as well. And you're in a competitive market, so it's really, really hard to sell. And then if you look at more complex solutions, so if you take a complex HR solution that is rolled out to everybody with lots of features, like then you need a whole onboarding process, and you need a whole integration process with all the systems and these kind of things. And then it gets even more complex and even more sensitive. And then you're diving really into super, super complex long sales and run maybe a long POC as well, etc. So yeah, so then it gets even longer. But for me, this complex versus simple is always there, not only because of the nature of the product, but also because of the nature of the organization you want to sell to. If you want to sell to a simple organization, simple process, even if you have a complex product most often, because otherwise it won't work economically. Mm-hmm. And then if you sell something simple to a complex organization, complex sales process. If you sell something complex to a complex organization, complex sales process.
Yeah, now salespeople that are listening to this are saying, damn, and you wonder why we yell to everybody when the Q4 starts, and you think our problems are small ones, right? So there are tons of things that they need to solve, to dig into, and it all comes down to also to the system that is set up in the companies to to give them the chance to succeed in that way. So let's dig a little bit into that. Usually, from what I see now, there are tons of similar products in B2B, especially in B2B SaaS. And the one thing that differentiates them is the buying process, right? Is it frictionless or no, or is it easy to buy, to go there? And when we look at the usually how it goes, so marketing does something, a company comes or SDR reaches out to somebody, they schedule a call, then they basically nurture them until they're ready to buy in a couple of emails or calls, and then the AI takes away to close the deal, right? And from that perspective, you create trust first of all through content, through those kind of people with the customer. Then you have SDR who appears as approachable guy or girl who comes in there, create trust again, and then basically when it's the most important, they say, this guy comes in and you need to sign the deal with him, right? So there are a lot of friction in that, and then customer support as well, it's somebody else. So from that perspective, what do you see? What are some things that can be changed? Also, one thing I want to also get into. Usually, SDR and AI and marketing have different things that they measure on, right? Their efforts. So, like SDR has this task to schedule as many calls as possible, right? So it's the number of calls. It's not who is on the calls, right? And that all those things actually breaks or creates the friction inside the buyer journey.
Yeah, I think in like tackling that first question last, because I think that's so for me, to be honest, all incentivization, the closer it gets to revenue, the better, right? And the closer it gets the closer it also gets to retention, the better, because in the end, that's what makes a SaaS business work. Is retention. It's not only the first close. So, but I think a good start is if you're really, really close to revenue. And the only problem is, especially for SDRs, it's such a lagging indicator. If you have, I don't know, 9-month sales cycle and you compensate an SDR based on revenue, it's like 12 months later when they get the benefit, right? So that is a big, big problem. So I understand why you have measures and incentives that are a bit early in the funnel, but still I would say like a part of the conversation should always be, and a part of the commission scheme is always, hey, what is kind of the revenue you generate? What is the win rate of the meetings you schedule? Because we don't have anything if you like just have an AE fully utilized and they don't close any of these deals, so somewhere there's a problem, right? So for me, it's always part of the discussion. If you're talking commission, if you're talking these schemes, that you have something that is close to revenue. And I think for marketing, it's the same, right? I think the new school of marketing is always you're as close to revenue as possible because you're responsible for revenue. You're not a lead machine for the sales team. You are also responsible for revenue, and this should be also something that is you own that KPI as well. And that is for me the commission and compensation discussion. And then from the buying perspective and this whole buying journey thing, I think it's a very good discussion to have. And I always was wondering myself when I like first got into SaaS and I was looking at all these different roles, like how does it can't be good, right? Because you're creating so much friction along the process where you go from SDR to AE, maybe marketing, SDR, AE, then you might have a solution engineer, you might have an onboarding specialist, a customer success rep, an account manager, an account expansion team, etc., etc. And all of these are different stakeholders. So I partly agree. Like this is a bit of a problem. I think, however, if you organize these handoffs in a very good way, then you can take the friction out. And I think the handoffs between different roles are kind of necessary because all of them have completely different skills. When you look into what a solution engineer does and compare that to an account executive, it's just a completely different thing. And if you look at SDR skill set with this account executive skill set, it's also not the same thing you wanna have. So it makes sense to kind of hand them off because otherwise it's also bad for the buyer because they get somebody who's not as good as like in that part of the buying journey. So you want to have the best ones. However, I think how these handoffs are organized and how information is passed is a big topic, right? We often see sales teams, like the biggest friction I think is between sales and customer success because they often also report to different people. So you have completely different also tool landscapes and sometimes they have different CRM systems and the handoffs are often a bit difficult to do, right? You ask the same question twice. You have these whole handoff checklists, especially in complex deals. that are pretty intense and a lot of documentation. So there's, I think, lots of potential for making it easier. Tools like ours do that actually, because we have this like one shared room for the whole deal, and we do the whole thing in there. So it's easy for an AE and a customer success rep to hand off. But it's also probably not yet perfect. So I think there's something where you really need to think about the buying journey, the friction. And for me, it's of course super important to get this buying journey as good as possible, and take the friction out. But I also discuss with many people who think a bit like SDR function, is that really the future? For me, it's still like a channel. So I would still bet on it, but probably the ratio will change. So we'll have less SDRs per AE. And I think that will come for sure. They will also get more productive through AI, and the ratio will change, but I think the function will stay.
Yeah, I agree with most of the things that you said, and there are two things causing these these frictions and the things. It's not necessarily the roles that are wrong, but it's how they're measured, right? In most of the cases, that's the thing, and also it relates to to my side of the story, and it is B2B companies are sales companies, not marketing companies, so they don't understand the importance of that. If marketing is working, you don't need that many SDRs. You need experienced salespeople who can close the deals and maybe get the bigger deal out of it. But tell me a little bit, what is exactly the problem that you guys are solving with your company?
Yeah, just to add to the point, one sentence. I think the CRO and all this revenue operations, kind of this revenue roles, are the fastest growing roles, right? Like I think of all job titles in the US, that's one of the fastest growing roles.
That's a good topic,
yeah. And the problem though is these revenue, the people who are promoted in these roles always have either the marketing side as kind of their main side, or the sales side. It's just usual, because before they've been CSO or they have been CMO, and it's converging, but still they have always let's see how that develops over time, and if it stays like that, or if it will be separated again. But they always will have their focus, and this will kind of make or like make the company and make the go-to-market. And you could have, I think, the same company but led by two different revenue background people, will have a different go-to-market just because of the focus point. So that's what I see often, right? And the discussions are completely different when I talk to a CSO who turns CRO about marketing. Of course, like they just have not the same context as a CMO would have, right? And I think that's a big thing, where we need to see how these teams are structured and built, and how the go-to-market is built over time. But as this perspective, this whole revenue perspective grows, I think also the awareness for that will grow. It just take a bit. So for us, what we do, in the end, I see it threefold. So what we are a sales enablement solution. It's broadly the category of digital sales room, although I'm not a super big fan of the category, because in the end we see ourselves kind of as a deal management and deal execution solution. So what does that mean? Part one, digital sales room, have all the materials for your buyer in one place, have a joint action plan if you have a complex sell in one place, quoting, etc. So making it easy for the buyer to get all the material, and for the sales reps as well. Second part of it though is, and that's more important for us a bit because we work with bigger teams, is process adherence. What is really, really cool about marketing and everything you can do like at scale is you can just like make it a machine, right? So that's what I love about product led. You can just optimize kind of the things along the funnel, and it's a machine. With sales, it's a bit different because you have salespeople, so it's human. And what is really, really difficult for many sales teams is to close the performance gap, meaning you always have top performers, you have core performers, you have low performers. Closing that gap between top performers and low performers is a big thing. And then making them adhere to a process, because there will be a process you define, right? And this will be also buyer-oriented, customer-oriented. So you will have some process. However, every sales rep does it a bit differently. They all have their style, and some are new, so they can't execute as well. And what we try to do is help sales teams a lot with deal execution. So always have the latest materials, simple things like that. Always use mutual action planning based on a template that works. Always use a specific business case kind of template. Make it easy for your buyer to access, explain it, etc. So this whole deal execution perspective, process adherence perspective is really important for us. And then the third part is we track all interactions that sellers and buyers have via our digital sales rooms. And this is pushed back to the CRM. So you get way better deal visibility. So you know, so what I said earlier, the buyer talks to you 5% of the time, 95% they do something else. You want to have visibility on that 95%. And that's something I think is very well known top of funnel marketing, that you track people when you're not talking to them. But in sales, mostly the customer is only tracked when you talk to them. And the rest of the time, it's not tracked at all. So that's something where we try to give transparency, give a lot more data points about who are the stakeholders, when are they coming in, are they actually engaged or not, do they click the documents, do they look at the proposals, and we push that back to the CRM. And you can basically you get a bird's eye view on prospect engagement across all your funnel. You can use that for forecasting as well. So that's kind of the three perspectives, right? So digital sales room, make it easy, deal execution, process adherence, and then forecasting, getting this bird's eye view on engagement.
Sounds good. Like if I'm doing sales, that's kind of something that I would like to have on my side. Basically, it's like having a mentor that's more experienced, that's been in the market, and then actually, have built teams and guide you through the process.
Yeah, kind of, and it makes it easy for sales teams to like follow very good, well structured process they define themselves, and then over time improve it over time, and have like this philosophy they want to have implemented. And yeah, that's kind of what we are looking at. And if you describe it in a different way, you know CRM systems, right, where you have all your internal stuff, you manage all your deals, you have your workflows, your email templates, etc. And all the external stuff is currently done through emails. And this is something we want to take basically into one platform where you work with your buyer, but you get all these benefits alongside. So it's the one tool that has everything you need to close complex deals basically in one place.
Yeah, sounds good. So tell me, what are some of the things that you're seeing now working directly with salespeople that that are let's say top three things that can be and needs to be changed or adopted or converted into something else for them to get better results?
Yeah. So what we see a lot, basically starting from how the market looks like, right? So we see lower win rates, longer sales cycles, more stakeholders, and that's basically through like every company we talk to. If you compare it to 1.5 years ago, the situation completely changed. And the problem is, typically sales reps are not trained for that environment. They just started to train them now for this, right? And this is something where there's lots of potential for improvements if you want to, because naturally in this kind of market environment, you will have a few high performers and there will be lots of not high performers. And that's just typical. So the amount of high performance in the team will just shrink a lot, and you need to kind of close that performance gap. And that is something you do through enablement, and that's tools, that's training, and that's processes. So what we see a lot is qualification. It's kind of a very ancient thing, but it's still very important, and many sales teams do it like not super disciplined. So really disciplined qualification, following some of the like very well-known frameworks like Medipic or so, Medpic or so, and that is one. So qualification, top of the funnel, so you're spending the time on the right deals. And then second is the deal management and deal execution, where, for example, one simple thing is mutual action planning that we push a lot. That means basically you do a shared plan with your buyer where you align on the next steps, where you align on dates, where you align on stakeholders who need to be involved. And this is something you desperately need if like sales cycles get longer and you have more stakeholders involved, you will need that even more. So this is something we are pushing a lot because it helps taking uncertainty out for the buyer. It helps taking uncertainty out for the seller, and they can align on a joint plan. As soon as you have somebody who's qualified, who wants to buy, you need that to move a complex deal through, in our opinion, and do that efficiently, right? And that is something we push a lot. So those would be the two top things we currently discuss a lot with sales leaders. Is basically on a deal level, it's really qualification, and then the deal execution or mutual action plans, and having all of that built into the sales process. Think one or two big levers, and then you can do all the other things like business cases, etc.
Yeah. I mean, one thing comes to my mind. Maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't. But it came to my mind because I'm looking at the marketing environment. Is like there are a lot of people who are like older, been doing things the same way for years, and now when they need to adapt to the new way of doing things, and there's a new generation coming, it's kind of the clash of the two inside the companies. Is that the thing with sales as well, or it's a little bit different?
Then I'm not too sure, to be honest. It's naturally the case probably that like new people do it a bit differently than established ones, and they've seen different things and so on. But I'm not too sure how big the clash is, because in the end, the interesting thing about sales, marketing is a bit also something you learn on the job, but sales you really learn on the job, right? Nobody studies sales. I think you can study at least marketing. There's not this kind of standard way. You basically go into a company and you're educated there and you follow the processes. So this is something where you have this like, internal learning. I'm not too sure if there's a huge clash between new generation, old generation in sales teams, to be honest. It's a good question.
Yeah, and another one. So I have a friend who is, huge sales guy in the industry for years, doing enterprise level sales, and basically he's all about cold calling, right? He kind of took that as a mantra, right? He doesn't talk about anything else, only about that. When you talk off screen, he realizes other things work as well. But I want to get your opinion on how successful is cold calling today compared to maybe some new techniques like I don't know. We mentioned content-led sales. When salespeople are actually creating content, creating their own pipeline, sort of, in a way, making it easy, for them to get into the conversation with the right people. And we can jump in and also add like not only inbound calls but also emails, right? How effective are one thing on one side, like going blind and going all in on the other side, like creating the environment when you actually create a relationship with people.
Yeah. So I think email, like, it all depends a bit on the target group. That's one. And then it depends a bit on kind of what you're selling. So giving you a couple of examples, right? Target group, we are selling to VP sales, CROs. They have such full inboxes. I don't think I will ever get through with a cold email. It will be super, super difficult. I think for most of them, right? Because they don't have inbox zero and they get so many emails from tool providers. It will be really, really hard. So we are doing very, very limited work with email outbound. However, they are way easier to get on the phone because they know the craft. They kind of appreciate if somebody picks up the phone and calls them, and they like to hear pitch, So
kind of like a challenge. Are you up to the task to sell to me,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So for us, cold calling actually works, and we do it, and we like to do it as well. So it's a nice experience because it's the only channel where you get this direct feedback. You call somebody, they pick up, and they tell if you're doing a good pitch, they will tell you yes or no, and typically you get direct feedback. That's something you don't get via email. You send like 20 touches and at some point you just stop. And this is, I think, something that is way better with cold calling, to be honest. So, and I also think it's the most uncomfortable thing. And that's something typically that is the best thing to do. And that's kind of what I learned. That's why we cold call a lot. It's the most uncomfortable thing, something you have to do, can reap great results if you're doing it well. So I'm not somebody who thinks cold calling's dead. I read these posts all the time on LinkedIn. I don't buy it. It's just a bit more difficult to get numbers and getting them compliantly. That is where it can fail. But also that is like a problem that is a bit solved with all these vendors that have intelligence. Anyway, so email, I'm not a huge fan of it. I hate cold emails, getting them myself. It's just so annoying. I get so many, but I get the channel. It's just way easier to scale than cold calling. Then you have cold calling, which is really, really hard to scale, but you can get great results from it. We've seen it ourselves. And then you have all the content part. And what I would say to this, for me, it's that's the classic marketing thing, it's different stages. So you do brand awareness, you do
Mm-hmm.
this I think this creating demand, right, and capturing it and so on. And for me, an SDR or cold call somebody will have a hard time to do brand awareness. It doesn't make sense, but they have an easier time capturing demand, or maybe even like in the verge of creating to capturing. That is something where I see SDRs working, and this is something I think can work. But you shouldn't use SDRs for just creating demand, calling everybody, for just doing brand awareness. That doesn't make sense. There, it makes sense to do marketing. So in the end, to be honest, I think it's a maturity thing. At some point, you should do all of it. And you should try out what works best for your company and your target group. And you should also see what works best for every person, because I think there are SDRs who are really good with voice. There are SDRs who are really good with calls. There are SDRs who can produce great content. And then I'm all for it. That drives leads and drives conversions. There are SDRs probably that can do podcasting, and I'm all for that kind of stuff. That will be really interesting, though. I'm not sure if you have an opinion on that. If an SDR does that, or even an AE, how you measure and compensate, right? Because typically these teams are measured and compensated based on activity, and that's where the performance reviews is. So an SDR, I know SDR teams who are measured on activity by hour, meaning you will look
Mm-hmm.
into how many calls per hour, how many messages per hour, how many meetings booked in the end. And this would be really, really hard to do with something like LinkedIn content. And that's just where I'm wondering how that would work in the equation. But I'm all for it, logically.
Yeah, all depends. I mean, I'm seeing having a lot of friends who are working as SDRs, and all of them now started to create content, right? And because when they reach out to somebody and it says that they are SDR or business developer on their profile, people stopped accepting the connection request. But when they scroll to their profiles and they see that the content is good, they actually talk about about technology, about software, about sales processes, about these things. Then they see, maybe this one is different, right? Maybe they won't try to sell me right away. And from that perspective, that's kind of something that breaks the thing. And then you send a welcome message and don't try to push the sale right away. And it actually make things easier from that perspective. But also you said one thing, and I always say that like everything works, right? All depends on the market, on the target group. Like here, for example, on the Balkans in Serbia, if you are trying to sell B2B, huge B2B software deals, it won't work if you try to do marketing and create the awareness and brand those people are actually not on social and spending time for those kind of things. You need to go and and call the people. Even the email is not working now. All depends on the market. That's changing because Southeast Europe is the market which is going behind all those Western Europe and US markets. But also if somebody reaches out to you and knows exactly what do you need and has a solution for your problem, of course you're going to listen to him, right? So that's kind of the difficult thing, is you getting them on the call. And that's why I like salespeople. They do, you mentioned this thing, and I want to elaborate. So they do both of these things. They create demand and close the demand in the same call sometimes, right? And that's what makes it a lot difficult, and that's why you gotta respect salespeople, right? Marketing people cannot do it. Marketing cannot do that. But what marketing can do is try to create at least a little bit of we can call it demand, we can call it awareness, we can call it brand, however it is. So when somebody from sales reaches out to people, they at least know the company, or they have seen the guy on LinkedIn, or the founder or the CEO, however it is, those kind of things, and try to do a lot of things to kind of make it easy for them from that perspective. And I mean, there's one thing that I always like to emphasize, and it is, marketing and sales need to target the same people, right? Because usually, you have silos, and sales say, I'm going to sell to these guys, and they never talk to each other. They never share the information and those kind of things, but they actually need to work together.
Yeah, totally. I think that's where magic can happen, right? If you have both sides working together, sharing their lists, And I think marketing always works on a bit of a more longer tail, right? They have a bigger kind of list and more audience, and sales always works on a part of that list, but it should be a part of that list and not something else. And then they should know which lead is actually, or which company is actually super engaged with our LinkedIn content. So I can call them because it's just a priority thing. And the more I know about the lead, and the more I know they're interested, or who visits the website, right? These kind of things. So I think it's super, super important that both functions work together. That's why I'm also a fan of seeing marketing, sales, as well as customer success and onboarding kind of as a revenue engine and as a revenue team, because they all work externally. And in the end, they are there to convert into revenue, right? And I think all of them should work like quite closely together. And then what you said about creating, and like salespeople sometimes create and close demand in the same call. I think that's pretty important perspective, because that's not fully usual, right? If you have an outbound team, totally, right? This outbound team needs to call people. They need to basically call cold prospects and try to create the demand for the product, because otherwise, if they just target the 3% that are actually in the market, it just won't fly economically. So you have to create some demand as well when you sell, and then you have to close it. And if you are, however, very inbound focused, I think then marketing can like take a way like longer way of the buying journey and really create the demand and really give kind of this 25 conversion rate average leads to sales. That's also a very nice model. And then you close them as inbound leads. So I think there are all ways, and it depends a bit always on your market, etc., what works. But this outbound versus inbound, I think, is a very important distinction. And I think many companies in the recent months saw the inbound going down dramatically. So they now need to build this outbound muscle again, which they didn't have to in the last 2 years up until the Ukraine crisis happened.
Yeah, that's important thing that you mentioned now at the end. I mean, not Ukraine, but building the outbound muscle, because even if you're inbound, you're getting inbound sales and it's all going good, you are growing, and as you grow, you need to add the outbound as well, because it might be not enough. I usually say that it starts with sales that actually sparks the growth, and marketing is there to pick up that growth and accelerate it, because sales is usually one-on-one, marketing is one to many. Yep. Right? And from that perspective, especially in the first stage, in the early stage, you can use sales to kind of get you the information from the market, right? Which features are people the most interested in? Either are they already having somebody who is using that kind of product? How long will they be with them? Where would they go to look if they want to buy? Who's included in the decision-making process? Those kind of, it's not always we use sales and outreach and outbound kind of just to try to sell. Sometimes it's to extract the information, especially from the beginning. And, especially in the early stage, getting the CEO into those conversations. You can use SDRs to kind of schedule the calls, but if the, CEO or the founder is involved in actually understanding how to sell the product, then it's much easier when he realizes that, knows who should be in his sales team and how are things going from that perspective.
For sure, yeah. And you need to do founder sales. I think that's you need to do that, right? As a CEO or as a co-founder, you need to be on the ground selling revenue, and probably the first 6 to 7 figures you need to do yourself. I would always subscribe to that.
Yeah, that's important to say, because I see now I finished working with a company and the CEO too early wanted to get out of the conversations, right? Mm-hmm. It was a month and a half. Okay, he was building a company and those kind of things, but when he started doing the outreach, because it was the mobile development company and they started developing a product and then talking to potential customers, right? Because they were giving it for free for a couple of months for the specific teams to kind of see in which direction they should go with the features, right? So, and the CEO was the one who was taking the calls, and then after a month and a half, okay, I can hire somebody to take over the calls. And I was like, maybe you are hearing the same things. It doesn't matter. But, with every conversation, you're learning something new, and you need to invest that time early. So then you don't make mistakes when hiring people who will replace you, how you will do the sales, which features you're going to build. You need to build that muscle. And I always tell to people, like, when I started Funky Marketing and going from B2C to B2B, I talked with 260, 70 people in like 2 months. And I didn't know that I'm going to go into the B2B. I just knew that I'm going my way now, not to work for anybody else. And I saw the gap, people kept repeating it. Right. So, and I say, when I can do it, you are building, a huge product that you expect to be complex to sell to the enterprise level clients. Of course, you're going to be in 1,000, 200, 300, 500 conversations to get the insights, right? If you're not, it's just lazy.
Totally. I fully agree. I think you should sell. And I also think you need to talk to customers basically daily. And if you're, as a founder, not working with customers daily, like, what do you do? I mean, that's in the end the thing that will make or break your business, right? And this will inform every other decision that you're doing. And this is customer centricity. And I think it's an old saying. So totally agree. You should do the sales in the beginning yourself. Should be founder sales. You can have somebody, of course, supporting. I mean, we also have a go-to-market lead who does deals on his own, but I'm not sitting here and saying, okay, I don't drive any revenue, and he has to do it. That's not the way, I think, especially early stage. Yeah. I think, but always, right? Also, when I talk to late stage founders, they always still do sales a lot. And I think if you ask the Salesforce CEO, he will tell you he will spend most of his time with strategic customers. It's just what you do. And I think that's how the company is built, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's how you also get the feedback for your team and if they are doing well. So, 2 questions and we are finishing. First one is, what's next for you and the Valuecase? And the second one is, where can people find more information about you guys and connect with you as well?
Yeah, for sure. Very happy to answer this. So we are growing. We will have at some point later next year, we'll have a funding round as well. So we are like VC funded startup, meaning we are going through that motions, right? And that's probably the biggest milestones we are looking at typically to continue to scale and grow the business. And where you find out more about us is valuecase.com. So it's like business case, but valuecase.com. And you can also connect me on LinkedIn. Have my username. And please feel free to just reach out. I'm very happy. I'm a very eager connector, and would very happy to meet anybody if you're going to events like SaaStock or so. That's also where we typically are found. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. Connect with Lennart and from the other guys from the Valuecase team. Reach out to them. If you like, say that you heard about them on the Funky Marketing podcast. Right. Also subscribe and follow the podcast if you aren't already. And, Lennart, thanks very much for being on the show, for having this chat discussion with me about sales, marketing, B2B SaaS, and all those things. Guys, as always, keep it funky and see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.